Ben Williams stepped off the transport shuttle and breathed in the thick, humid air of Nexus Prime. The smell hit him immediately, a mix of exotic spices, alien cooking, and the sweet scent of unknown fruits. After 3 months on this trade world, he still found the marketplace overwhelming. Hundreds of different species moved through the crowded streets, speaking in languages that sounded like music, growls, or electronic beeps. Ben pulled his datapad from his jacket pocket and checked his list. As Earth's agricultural specialist on Nexus Prime, his job was simple: find new fruits and vegetables that humans could grow back home. The problem was that most alien produce either tasted terrible to human tongues or required growing conditions that Earth could not provide. The Kalari market stretched out before him like a colorful maze. Tall metal structures held up fabric canopies in every shade imaginable. Vendors from dozens of worlds called out in their native languages, trying to attract customers. Ben had learned to ignore most of them. After months of disappointing purchases, he had become careful about where he spent his credits. He walked past a stall selling what looked like purple rocks but were actually Thurian eggs. The vendor, a tall creature with 4 arms and golden skin, waved at him enthusiastically. Ben smiled and nodded but kept walking. He had tried Thurian eggs once. They tasted like burned metal. Near the center of the market, Ben noticed a small fruit stall that he had never seen before. Unlike the loud, colorful displays around it, this stall was quiet and organized. Neat rows of fruits were arranged on simple wooden tables. Some of the fruits glowed with soft inner light. Others changed colors as he watched, shifting from deep purple to bright orange. Behind the stall stood a Kalari woman. Ben had seen many Kalari during his time on Nexus Prime, but something about this one caught his attention. She had the typical Kalari features: blue skin that shimmered like water, large dark eyes, and the graceful movements that made all Kalari seem like they were dancing even when standing still. But unlike other Kalari he had met, she seemed sad. Her shoulders were bent forward and she kept her eyes down as customers approached her stall. Ben walked closer to get a better look at her fruits. The variety was amazing. He counted at least 20 different types, all perfectly arranged and clearly fresh. One fruit looked like a small sun, glowing yellow and warm to the touch. Another was shaped like a star and felt cool as ice. A third seemed to pulse with gentle light, like a heartbeat made visible. "Excuse me," Ben said politely. "Could you tell me about these fruits?" The Kalari woman looked up, and Ben saw surprise in her dark eyes. Most customers just pointed at what they wanted and paid without conversation. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "These are morning fruits," she said, pointing to the glowing yellow ones. "They grow only when the sun rises. Very sweet, very healthy." Her English was good but careful, as if she was choosing each word with thought. "And these?" Ben asked, indicating the star-shaped fruits. "Cooling fruits. Good for hot days. They make the body temperature lower." She picked one up and held it out for him to touch. Ben felt the coolness flow through his fingers. "Amazing," he said genuinely. "How do they do that?" For the first time, the woman smiled slightly. "My family has grown these for many generations. We know the old ways, the careful ways. Each fruit needs different soil, different water, different care." Ben nodded with interest. This was exactly the kind of information he needed for his reports. "Do you mind if I ask how long your family has been growing fruit?" The smile faded from her face. "My mate and I grew them together. Now I grow them alone." She turned away and began rearranging fruits that were already perfectly placed. Ben felt awkward. He had clearly touched on something painful. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to bring up difficult memories." The woman looked at him again, this time with curiosity rather than sadness. "You are human, yes? Most humans do not apologize for personal questions." "I suppose I'm not like most humans," Ben replied. "My name is Ben, by the way. Ben Williams. I am Nira," she said after a pause. "Nira Veltar. It's nice to meet you, Nira. Your fruits are the most beautiful I've seen in the entire market." Nira's expression softened. "Thank you. Would you like to try one? The morning fruit is very good for human digestion." Ben nodded eagerly. Nira selected a perfect yellow fruit and handed it to him. When Ben bit into it, sweetness exploded across his tongue. It was like sunshine and honey combined, with a texture that was both crisp and soft. But more than that, he felt energy flow through his body as if the fruit was healing tiredness he didn't even know he had. "This is incredible," he said honestly. I've never tasted anything like it. The old ways make better fruit, Nira said with pride. Faster growing makes bigger fruit, but not better fruit. Ben spent the next hour learning about Nira's different fruits. She showed him cooling fruits that could bring down a fever, energy fruits that could keep someone awake for days without harm, and healing fruits that could mend minor cuts and bruises. Each one required specific growing conditions and careful timing. As they talked, Ben noticed that other customers came and went quickly. They bought what they needed and left without conversation. Some seemed impatient when Nira took time to explain things to Ben. He realized that she was probably losing business by spending so much time with one customer. "I should let you serve other people," he said, stepping back from the stall. "They do not want to learn," Nira replied. "They want only to buy and leave. It is nice to speak with someone who cares about the growing, not just the buying." Ben purchased 3 different types of fruit and promised to return the next day. As he walked away, he found himself looking forward to the visit more than he expected. There was something about Nira's quiet knowledge and careful way of speaking that appealed to him. The next morning, Ben arrived at the market earlier than usual. He had spent the evening researching Kalari culture and learned some basic words in their language. When he approached Nira's stall, he greeted her with Velthari Nisha, which meant good morning in Kalari. Nira's eyes widened with surprise and pleasure. "You learned Kalari words?" "Just a few," Ben admitted. "I wanted to be respectful." This simple gesture seemed to mean a great deal to Nira. She smiled more freely than she had the day before and began teaching Ben the proper names for her fruits in the Kalari language. Ben was a quick learner, and soon they were having conversations that mixed English and Kalari. Over the following weeks, Ben made visiting Nira's stall part of his daily routine. He always bought fruit, but more importantly, he listened as she shared the knowledge passed down through her family. She taught him about soil preparation, about reading the subtle signs that indicated when fruit was perfectly ripe, and about the delicate balance required to grow the more exotic varieties. In return, Ben shared stories about earth agriculture. Nira was fascinated to learn about human farming methods, especially techniques for growing food in difficult conditions. She asked many questions about earth crops and seemed genuinely interested in Ben's work. During their 3rd week of conversations, Ben noticed that Nira seemed to be struggling with some of the heavier work around her stall. Large crates of fruit needed to be moved, and the metal framework that held up her canopy required adjustment. She was clearly strong enough to do the work, but Ben could see that it was difficult for her. "May I help you with those crates?" he asked one morning. Nira looked surprised and a little uncomfortable. "That is not necessary. I can manage. I know you can," Ben said gently. "But I have time and it would be my pleasure to help." After a moment of hesitation, Nira nodded. Ben spent the next hour helping her rearrange her stall and move supplies. Other vendors watched with interest. Some seemed puzzled by the sight of a human helping a Kalari with manual labor. When the work was finished, Nira offered Ben a cup of Kalari tea. They sat on small stools behind her stall, watching the market come alive with morning shoppers. "Why do you help me?" Nira asked suddenly. Ben considered the question carefully. "Where I come from, neighbors help each other. I know we're different species, but you feel like a neighbor to me." Nira was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke in a voice so soft that Ben had to lean closer to hear. "My mate died 6 months ago. Mining accident on the 3rd moon. Since then, most people see me as only half a person, a woman alone. But you see me as a whole person, someone worth helping, worth talking to." Ben felt a deep sadness for her loss. "I'm very sorry for your pain, Nira. Your mate must have been a good person to have earned your love." Tears appeared in Nira's dark eyes, but she was smiling at the same time. "He was. We had many plans together. Plans for expanding our orchard, for creating new varieties of fruit. Now I try to continue the plans alone." "You don't have to be alone in everything," Ben said carefully. "Friends can help with some things." "Friends," Nira repeated the word thoughtfully. "Yes, I think we are becoming friends." From that day forward, their relationship deepened. Ben began bringing small gifts, earth coffee beans that complemented the taste of Kalari fruits perfectly, and books about human agricultural techniques translated into Kalari. Nira, in return, began sharing more personal stories about her life with her mate and the dreams they had shared. Ben learned that Nira and her mate had owned a large orchard outside the city, where they grew the fruits she sold in the market. The orchard had been in her mate's family for generations, and it contained some of the oldest and most valuable fruit trees on Nexus Prime. Since his death, Nira had been struggling to maintain both the orchard and the market stall by herself. The trees need constant care, she explained one evening as Ben helped her close up the stall. Each variety requires different attention at different times. Some need daily watering, others need watering only once a week. Some need special nutrients in the soil, others grow better in poor soil. My mate knew all these things by heart. I know them too, but doing the work of two people is very difficult. Ben began to understand the real challenge Nira faced. It wasn't just grief, though that was certainly part of it. She was trying to maintain a complex agricultural operation that had been designed for two people working together. Have you considered hiring help? Ben asked. Nira shook her head. The orchard makes enough money for one person to live, but not enough to pay workers. And besides, the knowledge of caring for these trees is family knowledge. It would take years to teach someone else. Ben thought about this problem as he walked back to his quarters that night. He was impressed by Nira's dedication to keeping her family's legacy alive. But he could see that she was wearing herself out trying to do everything alone. The next morning, Ben arrived at the market with an unusual request. Nira, would you be willing to show me your orchard? I'd love to see where these amazing fruits actually grow. Nira looked uncertain. It is not much to see right now. I have been so busy with the market that some areas need attention. I don't mind, Ben assured her. I'm genuinely curious about your growing methods. After considering for a moment, Nira agreed. Tomorrow is rest day for the market. If you truly want to see, I could take you then. Ben spent that evening researching everything he could find about Kalari agriculture. He read about their traditional growing methods and the specific needs of various fruit trees. He also looked up information about combining different agricultural techniques. An idea was beginning to form in his mind, but he wanted to see the orchard before suggesting anything. The visit to Nira's orchard would change everything for both of them, though neither of them knew it yet. As Ben fell asleep that night, he found himself looking forward to the next day with an excitement that had nothing to do with his official work and everything to do with helping a friend who had come to mean more to him than he had expected. The friendship that had begun with a simple question about fruit was growing into something deeper and more meaningful. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of a new chapter in both their lives. The morning air was crisp as Ben met Nira at the transport station outside the city. She had traded her usual market clothes for practical work clothing, a simple tunic and pants that could handle dirt and plant stains. Ben had also dressed for outdoor work, bringing a small backpack with water and some earth energy bars. The orchard is about 30 minutes by transport, Nira explained as they boarded the small vehicle. It may not look like much compared to the big commercial farms you have seen. I'm sure it will be wonderful, Ben replied honestly. During the ride, he watched the landscape change from the bustling city to rolling hills covered with various types of alien vegetation. The sky was a pale green color that still amazed him after months on Nexus Prime. When they arrived at the orchard, Ben's first impression was one of beauty, mixed with obvious neglect. Row after row of fruit trees stretched across several acres, each tree heavy with colorful fruit. Some trees glowed softly in the morning light, while others sparkled like they were covered with tiny jewels. But Ben's trained eye also noticed weeds growing between the rows, some dead branches that needed pruning, and irrigation lines that appeared to need repair. It is not as good as it was when my mate was alive, Nira said quietly, noticing Ben's careful observation of the property. The trees are magnificent, Ben said, and he meant it. I've never seen anything like some of these varieties. But I can see that maintaining all this alone would be incredibly difficult. Nira led him through the orchard, explaining the different sections. The morning fruit trees grew in the eastern section, where they could catch the first sunlight. The cooling fruits grew in a shaded valley where the temperature stayed lower. The healing fruits required special soil that Nira's family had been preparing and improving for generations. Each section needs different care, Nira explained as they walked. The morning fruits need daily watering at sunrise. The cooling fruits need watering only twice a week, but the water must be exactly the right temperature. The healing fruits need a special mixture of nutrients added to the soil every 10 days. Ben began to understand the scope of the challenge. How did you and your mate divide the work? He took care of the morning fruits and the cooling fruits. I managed the healing fruits and the market sales. We worked together on the big tasks like pruning and harvest. Nira's voice grew sad. Now I try to do everything, but some days I cannot be in all places at once. They spent the morning walking through every section of the orchard. Ben asked many questions about timing, soil conditions, and the specific needs of each variety. Nira was clearly knowledgeable about every aspect of the operation, but Ben could see that she was overwhelmed by the amount of work. During their lunch break, sitting under the shade of a large healing fruit tree, Nira shared more about her situation. "There is something I have not told you about my difficulties," she said, looking down at her hands. "In Kalari law, when a family business owner dies, the surviving mate has 1 year to prove the business can remain profitable. If I cannot show good profits by the anniversary of my mate's death, his family can claim the orchard." Ben felt a chill run through him. "When is that anniversary?" 3 months from now," Nira replied. "I have been trying very hard, but some of the trees are not producing as well as they should. I think my care is not as good as it needs to be." "What counts as good profits?" Ben asked. "I must show income equal to the average of the 3 years before my mate died. Those were very good years. We had perfect harvests and high prices." Nira looked around at the orchard with love and fear in her eyes. "This land has been in his family for 7 generations. If I lose it, it will be sold to a commercial farming company. They will cut down the old varieties and plant only fast-growing, profitable fruits." Ben felt anger rise in his chest at the unfairness of the situation. Nira was not failing because she lacked knowledge or dedication. She was failing because she was trying to do the work of 2 people, while also dealing with grief. "May I ask you something?" Ben said carefully. "Would you be willing to let me help you? Not just for a day, but regularly. I could come here in the evenings after my market work and on rest days." Nira looked surprised. "You would do that? But why?" "This is not your problem." "Because you're my friend," Ben said simply, "and because I think I might be able to help in ways you haven't considered." Ben had been thinking about this possibility since their conversation the day before. His background in earth agriculture had taught him techniques that might work well combined with Kalari methods. More importantly, he had access to some technologies that could make the work more efficient. "What do you mean?" Nira asked. "On Earth, we have learned to work with nature instead of fighting against it. We use companion planting, where different plants help each other grow. We use natural pest control and soil improvement methods. I think some of these techniques might work here, especially if we combine them with your traditional knowledge." Nira was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she spoke. "My mate and I always said we wanted to try new things, but we were always too busy with the daily work. If you truly want to help, I would be grateful." That afternoon, Ben rolled up his sleeves and began working alongside Nira. She showed him how to properly prune the healing fruit trees, and he showed her a technique he had learned for encouraging better root growth. Together, they repaired several broken irrigation lines and cleared weeds from around the morning fruit trees. As they worked, Ben noticed something important. Nira seemed more energetic and hopeful than he had ever seen her. Having someone to share the work and the decisions was clearly helping her in ways beyond just the physical labor. "You know," Ben said as they finished their work for the day, "I have some equipment back at my quarters that might be useful here. Soil testing devices, humidity monitors, things like that. Would you be interested in trying some new approaches?" "Yes," Nira said without hesitation. "I am ready to try anything that might help." Over the following weeks, Ben established a routine. He would spend his mornings in the city market, buying fruits from Nira and other vendors for his research. Then he would take the afternoon transport to the orchard and work there until evening. On rest days, he would spend the entire day at the orchard. The first innovation they tried was companion planting. Ben had researched which earth plants might grow well in Nexus Prime soil and benefit the fruit trees. He brought seeds for plants that would add nitrogen to the soil and others that would repel harmful insects. Nira was skeptical at first, but willing to try. "If it does not work, we can remove them," she said as they planted the first test area. The second innovation was a timing system. Ben created a schedule that organized all the orchard tasks by priority and timing. Instead of trying to do everything every day, they would focus on the most critical tasks first and handle less urgent work during slower periods. "This is much more organized than our old method," Nira admitted after the first week of using the new schedule. I feel less worried because I know exactly what needs to be done when. The third innovation was the most important. Ben suggested they focus on increasing the value of their existing fruit, rather than trying to increase the quantity. Using his knowledge of earth preservation and processing techniques, they began creating new products from Nira's fruits. They made concentrated healing fruit juice that was more potent than the fresh fruit. They created dried morning fruits that kept their energy-giving properties for months. They developed a cooling fruit paste that could be stored and used during hot seasons when fresh cooling fruits were not available. These processed products sell for much higher prices than fresh fruit, Ben explained as they packaged their first batch. And they can be sold year-round, not just during harvest season. Nira was amazed by the results. In 1 week, we have earned as much from these products as I usually earn in a month from fresh fruit sales. Word of their innovations began to spread through the market. Other vendors were curious about the new products, and customers were eager to try them. Soon, Nira's stall became one of the most popular in the entire market. But the most significant change was in Nira herself. Working with Ben had helped her rediscover joy in her farming. She began sharing stories about her mate without sadness, remembering the good times instead of focusing on the loss. She started making plans for the future instead of just surviving day by day. My mate would have loved these new ideas, she told Ben one evening, as they watched the sunset from the orchard. He always said that tradition was important, but growth was also important. I think we have found a good balance. 2 months before the deadline, it became clear that their efforts were succeeding beyond their hopes. The orchard was producing better than it had even in the best years with Nira's mate. The new products were in high demand throughout the market. Most importantly, Nira had regained her confidence and her vision for the future. I have been thinking, Nira said one day as they worked together. When this year is finished and the orchard is secure, I want to expand. There is land next to ours that is for sale. With these new methods, we could grow even more varieties. Ben smiled at her enthusiasm. That sounds like an excellent plan. We? Nira looked at him with hope in her eyes. You would want to continue working here. Ben had been thinking about this question for weeks. His official assignment on Nexus Prime was scheduled to end in 6 months, but he had been considering requesting an extension. Working with Nira had become the most satisfying part of his job. I would love to continue, he said. In fact, I've been thinking about proposing something to my supervisors on Earth, a permanent agricultural exchange program between Earth and Nexus Prime. Someone needs to stay here to coordinate it. Nira's smile was brighter than the glowing fruits around them. That would be wonderful. 3 weeks before the deadline, they received an unexpected visitor. A representative from the Galactic Agricultural Council arrived at the orchard to investigate reports of innovative farming techniques. The representative, a tall being from a species Ben didn't recognize, spent 2 days examining their methods and interviewing both Nira and Ben. Your combination of traditional Kalari knowledge and human innovation is remarkable, the representative told them. The council would like to document your techniques and share them with agricultural programs throughout the galaxy. This recognition brought even more attention to their work. Soon they were receiving visitors from other worlds who wanted to learn their methods. Nira found herself teaching workshops on traditional Kalari growing techniques, while Ben taught classes on Earth agricultural innovations. The anniversary of Nira's mate's death arrived on a bright, clear morning. Nira had requested that Ben be present when the family representatives came to review the orchard's financial records. She wanted him there for moral support, but also because his contributions had been essential to their success. The review took most of the morning. Nira's mate's brother, who served as the family representative, examined every record carefully. When he finished, he looked up with surprise and respect. These profits are not just equal to the previous years, he said. They are significantly higher. The orchard is clearly thriving under your management. Our management, Nira corrected, gesturing to Ben. This success belongs to both of us. The brother nodded respectfully to Ben. The family is grateful for your assistance too, Nira. You have helped preserve something very precious to us. After the official business was finished, Nira and Ben stood together in the orchard, watching the afternoon light play through the leaves of the fruit trees. They had accomplished something neither had thought possible when they first met at the market stall. I have been thinking about my mate today, Nira said softly, not with sadness but with gratitude. He brought me to this orchard, and the orchard brought me to you. I think he would be happy to know that his legacy continues and grows." Ben felt honored by her words. Over the months they had worked together, he had come to understand that their friendship was something rare and precious. They came from different worlds and different species, but they had found common ground in their love of growing things and their respect for each other. "I received news from Earth yesterday," Ben said. "My request for permanent assignment has been approved. The agricultural exchange program is officially starting next year. And you will run it from here?" "If you'll have me as a permanent partner in the orchard," Ben replied. Neera's answer was a smile that rivaled the glow of the morning fruits around them. As they walked back toward the farmhouse, Ben reflected on how much his life had changed since that first day when he had simply wanted to buy some fruit. He had come to Nexus Prime to study alien agriculture, but he had found something much more valuable. He had found friendship, purpose, and a place where he truly belonged. The human who had gone to an alien market looking for fruit had discovered that the most important things in life could not be bought or sold. They could only be grown with patience, care, and the willingness to help others flourish.